What an incredible film. I just, every time, this is like my fourth time watching it, and it's such a feast, for the eyes. But, so, just thank you again for creating such a beautiful piece.
Oh, thank you.
I guess, I wanted to also recommend to the audience that you check out the wonderful conversation actually that Colleen and Jacqueline Stewart had about this film during New York Film Festival. It was such a complete conversation. I kind of thought to myself, well, what am I going to ask? you know, but so I guess where I am with it is, just kind of picking up from where they left off. If there's anything really left, and then I'll throw it back to the audience so that we can have like a nice wonderful conversation for you all. One of the I guess to kind of start off is I'm still in the world of Pika, and I'm wondering to myself where she might be today. Is she still an artist? What does her community look like? I mean, if you can indulge us just a little.
Gosh, where would Pika be today? Thriving, I hope. Um, yeah, I hope that she kept making stuff for the people she loves, and I hope that she and Toby are still friends. I hope everybody is well. I hope her mom's okay.
She's 43.
43. She probably has a child or two or a few. Yeah.
One can hope, but I guess it's not the necessary threshold or anything. But to success. Well, I guess I thought so much about Pika because of her relationship with community, and the conversation you had had with Jacqueline was when you were creating this project, everyone around you became a participant, so to speak. Even such a incredible casting of the woman who's like the neighborhood psycho, the bag lady. I mean, I grew up with one, and even though Jacqueline did talk about this, I would love for you to kind of talk about how you came to find her, and also how the community contributed to this film.
Yeah. It's not something that we consciously planned, but it was definitely something that we desperately needed, which was like the protection and concern and interest of the neighborhood. And it was remarkable because we basically, Chris Gant, who was one of the line producers, she found this house that had been vacant for quite some time. She tracked down the family and said, "Can we use it? We don't really have much money." And they said, "If you buy a water heater, you can use it all summer." "Can we paint it?" "Yeah, as long as you paint it back." And so we moved in. I don't even think we actually bought the water heater because they were like not like we did anyway. That's a whole convoluted story. But I moved in there with the camera gear. Someone had to sleep with the camera gear, so I slept in the house every night, and nothing ever happened to me or the gear or the house ever. And I don't even know if that's possible. We barely had locks on the doors. So that's one thing, is like the way in which there was like a tacit agreement in the community that we would be protected. And then there was the daily shooting on the stoop of that house, which it was summertime, so it would draw all these kids who weren't in school and who wanted to eat the day old bagels that my crew was really over. So they would have breakfast with us and then hang out. And they became part of the fabric. They're always in the background. They're always you. If you don't see them, you hear them. There's that, and then there's the active, like creative people in the community who showed up and were like, "I can contribute. Do you need some help?" You know what I mean? And that was the woman who ends up playing the neighborhood psycho, as you put it. She and her mother ran a community theater company, and they're like, we act. And I was like, really? Because come on, you know what I mean?
She was on point. She
Oh,
didn't let up for a second.
she was amazing. She was wonderful, and she was calibrated. Like she had her like a very particular register that we like agreed on. She was fantastic, and she just was very professional and showed up. And to me, all of those different components of participation, like the tacit kind of invisible hand of like us being protected, that's some sort of, that's very organized. That everyone knew not to mess with us. That's actually huge. Then there's like the really like cars driving by really slowly, which we thought we were like, should we duck? Are we gonna get shot? And it was actually the parents of the children who were hanging out on the set, just like checking things out, making sure everything was cool. There was my crew who kind of like unofficially decided to apprentice some of these young people and teach them stuff so that they were actually working on the set alongside some of our gaffer, Kurt, and some of the grips and stuff. It was something that was just happening, and it was actually like in the throes of it. We needed it. Like it wasn't possible to make the film without it. In retrospect, it's a kind of wealth that there's no price for. You know what I mean?
That actually reminds me of Charles Burnett when he discusses Killer of Sheep and how he taught the neighborhood to essentially like do his sound system, or
Yep.
do sound on the shoot.
Yep.
And I'm wondering now if that's kind of just part of being a black filmmaker.
I mean, wouldn't that be wonderful if it was the way we made films? Like, wouldn't it be wonderful if, like, when black people show up to a neighborhood to make a film, we have to have, like, a social contract with the community? You know what I mean? That would be
It seems
beautiful.
like there's a pattern.
That would be
In all
beautiful.
truth. Well, I guess in as long as I've kind of heard of this film or have seen it, what's always been striking is the title, Dry Long Cell. Can you kind of talk about the just the origin story there? I know you translated on screen as ordinary, and then just in my research, I also found it to equate to mundane. I'm just curious. I also heard you say to, I think, a gentleman last year, just an earshot, because I'm nosy, but I think you had said that you had drawn the name from a song, or
It does appear in a Robert Johnson song, Come On, I'm in the Kitchen. If you listen to the lyrics closely, he says it's going to be a cold winter, it's going to be dry long so, which means you're going to have to get by with very little. It also can mean same old crap, same old thing, same old thing, same old thing, in terms of challenges. It can also just mean I'm dry long so, which means I'm nobody special. And there's a book by an anthropologist named John Langston Gwaltney called Dry Long So. That's where the title of this film comes from, because I read that book. And like very often when he was interviewing very working class black people, they were confused. They're like, why do you want to interview me? I'm Dry Long So. And I was like, that's who I want to make movies about. That's exactly who I want to make movies about.
I was also it also came across the Virginia Hamilton book. I think it's also titled Darling. So something that just growing up, you read about. It's these just books that black kids just know. But the cover of it is so folkloric. So it kind of I don't know, made me think a little bit about that too. This bluesiness to it, but then Robert Johnson has that play there. I guess I would love to also talk about just the men, the brothers in this film. I mean, gorgeous. The whole cast, gorgeous. How did you kind of come to I guess meet them, and I'm also curious about how the ensemble themselves, or the cast collectively practice building intimacy and camaraderie, and if that was something that you gave them notes on, if that was sort of just organic on set.
I was the director of the film, so yes, I gave them notes.
Well, actually, I was going to ask if you could share the notes you gave them to build that. I apologize.
Well, I want to start with Timothy, who was the psycho serial killer and the abusive boyfriend, and a magnificent human being, and an Oakland hairdresser who had this really cool shop that everyone went to get beautiful. And he was a hairdresser of, again, Chris Gant, our line producer. And she was just getting her hair did and told Timothy about the film, and he was like, I want to be in the film. And he's like, and not only that, but everybody needs to come through here to get their hair done and like blah blah blah. So Timothy just like was like opened his shop to us and really took care of the actresses and stuff, and then was very excited about playing this bad man. He was so into it. It was hilarious. It was really funny because it was literally like just so distant from his actual very warm personality. And then there's those three guys in the blue Jeep. One of them is Keith, and the other two, I was like I was trying to read the credits so I could remember their names. This is 25 years ago, you guys. I'm sorry, but they were all local Oakland people. The youngest one, who had the crush on Pica, was like delivered to the set by his single mom every day. The oldest one was the guy with the bandana, who was a former NFL player, who was just kind of like in transition and just like, I don't have anything to do, let's do this. And then there's Keith, who was actually an artist, and he was the one who designed the T-shirts. Yeah, and then there's Will Power, who plays Malik, and who was like an old friend. I'd known him and from college and just from the scene, and he was just like an obvious choice for that character, trained actor, you know. So I just got very lucky with like who we knew, and the people that were part of this, like they're people, you know what I mean? It's sort of like a web. So when you start with a sort of like small cohort of great people, then more great people come.
Amazing. And just the ensemble coming together and building this, because it felt like everyone was really just genuinely friends, and Malik had such a gentle spirit towards Pica. You almost forget that you're watching a film and it's not they haven't known each other for years. So can you kind of talk about how you built that within them?
I mean, I when I had a year of training at UCLA, and I devoted most of that year to learning about how to work with actors. There was this old great gran diva, Delia Salvi, who was the directing actors for film teacher, and she was terrifying. Um, Woo, she was scary. And she would just put us through these paces of directing scenes and how to work with actors and how to talk to actors. And we would throw up a scene, work on a scene and bring it. And then, of course, it wouldn't be any good. So she would workshop it with there. It was like humiliating every week, and amazing. And I learned so much from her. And basically, the thing I learned was about how to use particular language about action and the present tense of experience to just tell people, instead of telling them how to do something, tell them about like what's at stake right now. And it just, all of the actors were just so open and like sponge like and like excited to work and just directable. You know what I mean? And actually, like I think Toby Smith, who plays Pica, um, after she saw the film, because sometimes she would really disagree, and I just have like, you need to do this, you need to do this. And there's dynamics on the set. You don't know what's going on as a director. You don't care. It's like, I don't care what so and so said to you. We're doing this, and after, there's one scene in particular where that was a thing, and I remember she's like, I get now why you're supposed to listen to the director. And I was just like, yeah. So I was tested every now and then, but in good ways.
Something that I think sort of has been lost in a lot of conversation that I've sort of heard you have, or just kind of would love for you to reflect on this theme of collective healing. Even though the cast is continuously haunted, or hunted, really. But of course, you bring, especially with the character Toby, you set so many points where she is gradually healing, and then but of course she has triggers, and then she comes back to a more feminine image, and then just in terms of grief, and death touches almost everyone in this film, but we have this resolve, at the end as a beautiful finale. But I would love for you to share just your thoughts there, and how, of course, cinema, is such a part of collective healing, especially I think in the Black community.
Um,
I guess I've had a while to think about this.
I'm happy. I'm happy you feel that way about this film. I am. I'm not sure I ever really thought about healing. Uh, I I was thinking about surviving, thriving, solving problems, getting through the day, moving forward, showing up for your friends, trying to contribute something to your community. I was thinking about stuff like that. This is the 90s. So words like self care and healing, and that's not a thing. It's not a thing. You just wanted to live, you know what I mean? Or not. But like, we were just really concerned about, like I said, like cars would drive by slowly and we were all like, should we duck? That's the way I was thinking. Like, I want my crew, my cast, myself, everybody I know, everybody I love to not die. That's like what I was thinking about as I was writing the film, as I was directing the film, surviving the 90s.
I was thinking a lot about the films that had come out, around the same time. Friday, Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society. I got The Hookup, and of course, Set It Off. All films shot in California. But there were in those, where I think a lot of those films kind of leave us traumatized. Especially that last scene on with Queen. You know, getting gunned down. But at least here in Dry Long So, you have this last moment where there's the coming together and breaking bread and
Yeah. I think I was thinking about like making a film about a girl who wins. And I wasn't really interested in making a film about um, like all of the many traumas and challenges that we experience. That's a part of life, but that's not like what I wanted to end on. And it's ironic now because of the work I do as an artist to watch the ending of this film and how she basically makes a site specific installation with found objects, which is pretty much what I do. And and I don't know, maybe I need a little psychoanalysis to figure out how I got from there to here, but there's definitely something in me that is very interested in this way of positioning yourself as an individual, as making offerings to a larger collective. I'm really interested in that. Uh, I gotta be honest, when they started having me come into the lab to look at this film, I didn't want to look at it, um, because I my experience of making the film was every day, every shot, almost every shot was a compromise. Um, and it was really hard. I'm a Libra, so I'm petty. Apparently, this is what they say about us. But it was very hard to let go of that disappointment in myself and the circumstances that produced those compromises, and that's kind of all I could see. Um, um, so it wasn't until we really got to the sound, like literally when we're doing the restoration, there was a conversation about like how hard do you want to go to make you can make this look like 35 millimeter if you want to. And then I realized I was like, oh wait a minute, actually, no, I stand by this film. I stand by shooting it in 16 millimeter. It wouldn't exist if we hadn't. If I'd shot it in video, no one would want to watch it because it just wouldn't be as beautiful as that Fujifilm stock. And I wanted that to be amplified. So I learned that through the watching of it that I was like, actually, that's a very good shot. Actually, great shot. Actually, oh, yes, keep that. Or maybe you can like make that prettier. Like, you know what I mean? But it was like a wonderful, it was I guess a healing process to that's the last time I'm gonna use that word, but like it was like to do that was really like really
cathartic.
cathartic. I
There
can
you
use
go.
cathartic. I can work with cathartic. Thank you.
I love that shot of Toby walking down the water, and you just have these just striking blues. And
Oh yeah, that's a good
man, I
shot. That's
just
a good day in Oakland. That's a beautiful day in Oakland. Yeah. Oh well, thank you for all of those comments. Um, Start with the Rodney King video, which I was an undergrad at SF State when that happened, and we watched it in film class and had a critique of that video, like formally, like talked about the guy who videotaped that out of his bedroom, talked about, like, we like broke the video down, like analyzed it. So yeah, actually, it's amazing you say that because I forgot about it until you said that. How my peers and I, we like actually dealt with that video as like an actual cinematic document. We had conversations about it. That aside, the reason that I wanted to study films was learning that cinema was a language, a syntax, and it had powers to make you feel and think a certain type of way. And depending on how you shot a scene, you would feel or think a certain type of way depending on how that was done. And I was noticing the way in which most movies, then and now, make me feel a certain type of very horrible way about almost everybody in the world that I love. And I wanted to use the language to do something different. And that had a lot to do with wanting to see people like me and wanting to see them not be diminished or debased or used as just like fleshy cannon fodder to advance a plot, or tortured, or all the other things that you still see in the majority of media where black people are in the narrative. Um, and the obsession with black men being an endangered species is, thankfully, black feminism has finally taken hold in the rhetoric of black politics, but at that time it really had not. And the dominant discourse about black liberation was very much connected to the jeopardy that black men faced. And there was literally zero conversation about the jeopardy that black girls face, often at the hands or in the face of black men. No, zero conversation about that. And that's why I wanted to make this movie about this girl who is sort of like indoctrinated with this point of view at the expense of her own safety and well being, often. At the time that it came out, no one noticed that it was a film about two black girls. When it came out, everybody wanted to talk about the endangerment of black men, which tells you a great deal about how things have shifted.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this wonderful film. I wanted to ask you how your relationship to sculpture and photography might have changed or shifted in the making of the film, and the relationship to artists. I see the references like Lorna Simpson, Noah Purifoy that are appearing, but curious how you and your collaborators kind of brought the process of art making into the heart of the film.
Thanks for asking about the sculptures. They were made by Wura Ogunji, who is a contemporary artist. I believe she's still based in Lagos.
Paris now.
Paris?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. Shoot. Um, I was really hoping to visit her in Lagos, but at the time, Wura was in grad school at San Jose State, and I didn't have a vision for I didn't have a very clear directive. Like, it wasn't like I could say, go and build this. I just spoke to Wura. I was like, I need a way. I need like some supports, like some forms that enable this character to show these Polaroids. And she was like, easy breezy. Like, she literally, there was a shed behind the house that we were occupying full of junk. She went into that shed, pulled out the junk, and started making things and sourcing everything. And those sculptures were gorgeous then and now. I wish we still had them. Yeah, I mean, they really speak to like the great artist that she is now. In terms of my relationship to sculpture, I still have a terrible relationship to sculpture. I think three-dimensional objects are difficult to make. And I was really consumed with directing a film, so I don't really have anything intelligent to say about that other than my profound gratitude for knowing someone as brilliant as Wura Ogunji. Oh, let me start with the music because people don't often speak to that. Like, a lot of the music you hear is scored music. I found these two very hungry composers in LA who were just like, we will do this for free just because we need something for our reel. Let's do it. And I was like, thank you, because I have literally zero money. But then all of the sorry, all of the music that you hear that is like pop music, hip hop music, it's all Bay Area artists. I mean, DJ Bourne is like when she's dancing in her bedroom, I can still rock that cassette tape. Can I just tell you? Like, these are like cohorts of, like, the one you may have heard of would be DJ Shadow of this period, this like Northern California clique of like amazing, very politically sensitive hip hop artists, and they were insanely generous. This was before you made money in hip hop. You know what I mean? This is when hip hop was really about community still, and they didn't think anything of like letting me use this music. They were like, "We're so happy you're making this movie. Go, thank you." Like, you know, like they would give me a cassette tape and say, "Pick a song. You can have a song." Okay, so that's the music. Now the color. Somewhere along the line in like studying how to make independent films, some director, and I wish I could credit them, but they were just saying that, you know, paint is really cheap. You can make anything look good with paint. And I was like, noted. And the second we rolled up on this house, which was like this sad, like greenish gray peeling, and the inside was just dingy and everything was kind of sad and unloved, I was just like, let's go to the paint store. You know what I mean? And often, I think that pink was probably something that was like, you know, what do you call the paints that someone mixes and then hates and brings back? A lot of the colors, but the yellow and the green inside the house, that was definitely a very deliberate sort of nod to like, this house hasn't been painted since the 70s. Maybe since grandma was the one running the house. And the outside of the house was just something that we thought would be photogenic. And the bedroom, I would say about Pica's room, the floor is green, the walls are terracotta, the trim is brown, and it was very much about this earthen world that I wanted her to be in.
Well, thank you all so much. It's such a beautiful audience. Colleen Smith, yo, what? I mean, hello.